You are attending the ACE Talking Circle for August. We'll give everyone a couple moments to join and get their audio on and everything before we get started. And while we are waiting for everyone to join, if you could say hello to your fellow grantees in the chat, put where you're zooming in from. I know many of you all have probably started your school year or are about to start your school year, so happy back to school time. Thank you, Veronica and Kelly. Nice to have you. Right. And while we are continuing to have folks join, I'll go ahead and read our disclaimer for us. This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education, contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises Incorporated. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred. Right. Once again, welcome everyone to your August Talking Circle for ACE. Happy to see everyone. Oh, it played. Disclaimer times two. All right. And then I also want to welcome your ACE program officer, Bianca. Hi, Bianca.
Hi, Casey. Hi, everyone.
All right. And then, of course, I am your TA team coach. My name is Casey Morgan, OCO from Dallas currently, but originally Oklahoma. And today we will be covering a few things. So we'll start with APR updates, and then we'll talk about what to look for on your GANs and some things to consider as far as budget. And then we'll move to the portion where you guys are really going to discuss and share with one another. And then we'll finish with some upcoming events. So first, APR updates. So a couple of things to be aware of with APR updates. You are going to fill out a survey, so there will be a link to submit your APR update this year rather than submitting it via email. And that link will be shared with you in the chat once we kind of talk through this. So should you submit an APR update, if you reported 999 for some or all measures in section A of your APR, then yes, you will need to submit an APR update. If you submitted an incorrect number or a number needs to be changed from your section A data of your APR, then that is also a reason that you would submit an APR update as well. If you submitted all correct and complete data in section A of your APR, so that includes all GEPRA measures for ACE, as well as all of your program measures, and you did not report 999 for any of those measures, then you do not need to submit an APR update. So a couple of reporting reminders regarding APR updates. They are due October 26th. So you might want to go ahead and put that on your calendar, in your planner, whatever you use to kind of keep yourself organized. And then, like I said, there are links this year for you to submit that APR update. And Olani did provide those links in the chat there. You can use either one. They will take you to the same place. If you are writing the link down, that second link might be the quicker one to write down, but they do go to the same place and will take you where you need to go for APR updates. And so everyone will submit through that form this fall. And remember that when you submitted your APR previously, if you indicated 999, that means that you did not have data at the time, but that you would have data before the end of the grant year. And so the time is coming now where you will need to submit that updated data that you didn't have before when the APR was due. And your updates must include all GEPRA measures for ACE and project measures that were reported as 999. You will use the Section A form to submit APR updates. And remember, you do not have to resubmit any measures that you already submitted correctly and completely during your APR submission. Keep in mind as you're filling out the Section A form for APR updates that you must fill in the actual ratio for any GEPRA and the target and actual for any project measures. And again, that's just for those measures that you entered 999 for. And as part of that APR update, you will also need to provide an updated narrative for the explanations of progress based on what has occurred from your APR due date through the last date of the grant year. And then we also encourage you to include the optional Section C reporting tool if you did not submit that the first time, or if you need to update any information in that Section C tool that you submitted the first time. And Olani, once again, did provide those forms in the chat if you'd like to go ahead and download those forms there. So this is that Section A form that you will use to submit your APR update. And it, once again, was posted in the chat and will be emailed out after this meeting as well. And so this is what your chart will look like. Remember, I mentioned that for GEPRA, you're just reporting that actual performance data like we do for our APR. So you'll see, you'll just report that actual ratio where that green checkbox is. And then where the red X's are, you will not put any numbers or information in those boxes. For your project measures that you need to update, you will include both the target ratio and the actual ratio. So once again, where you see those two green check marks on that project line. And remember, you do not want to include any new objectives. You only want to update the ones that you submitted previously for your APR. And remember to provide an updated explanation of progress as well. So just to kind of recap the due date and where you're going to submit that, your APR updates are due October 26th, and you will submit them to that link that you see on the screen and that was shared in the chat. Remember, you can use either one of these links. They will take you to the same place. And thank you, Olani, for popping those links in the chat again. So if you missed the link the first time, they are in the chat again if you'd like to copy and paste that over. Okay, so the next kind of order of business is grant award notifications and some budget considerations. So you're starting to wrap up the third year of your grant and preparing for the fourth year of your grants, which begins on October 1st. And so one big checklist item as you prepare for year 4 is to check your new grant award notification, or GAN. Your new GAN will be sent to you via G5, and that document contains a lot of important information about your grant. And it's important that you read it closely, even if it looks similar to your GAN from last year. So please make sure you are reading thoroughly through your GAN when you receive it through G5. I'm going to point out a couple places where I want to make sure you kind of verify and check some things on your GAN for the year 4. So first, you're going to want to check block 5 for the project director name and level of effort. You want to make sure that both of those things are correct. If either of those things are incorrect, then you should reach out to your program officer to make the necessary adjustments in that area. And if you need the link to G5 again, then that's in the chat as well. Thank you, Olani. So Down there at that bottom box where you see key personnel, that's where you will verify project director and level of effort. So if you need to change your project director or you need to change the level of effort, you need to make sure that you reach out to your program officer once you receive that GAN so that we can make sure we have the correct information. And then you'll also want to look at your year 2 grant awards. So you'll look at block 6 and 7. In block 6 and 7, you'll see the start and end dates of each grant year. And then in block 7, you'll see how much you were awarded for that next year. And so this action and budget period should match your grant award. And the performance period amount reflects your award for all years of the grant combined. So you see that bottom number there on the example under authorized funding that says performance period. That reflects all years of the grant combined. And then your action and budget period should match your grant award. So that those two top numbers there in that number 7 block. So you will want to make sure that that those look right and that you are aware of what your funding looks like for year 4. Okay, so a couple notes about carryover. So we always get lots of questions about carryover around this time. You still have almost 2 months of your grant year. And so we hope that you are making every effort to expend all of your funds for this year by the end of the grant year, and appropriately, of course. However, we know that it is possible that you may have some funds left over at the end of year 3. So whatever funds you have left over at the end of year 3, that is your carryover. And so whatever money has not been drawn down from G5 by October 1st becomes that carryover for next year. Keep in mind that carryover must stay in the budget category that it was in as of October 1st, 2023. However, your year 4 funds may be moved through a budget revision, and you will all submit a year 4 budget revision. If there are any potential budget cuts, that would be reflected in that grant award for next year, not in your carryover. So keep those things in mind as you're thinking about your funding for next year. And so when you're determining that year 4 budget, you want to add your year 3 carryover for each category plus your year 4 grant award, and that would equal your total year 4 budget. Keep in mind that you all are responsible for kind of keeping track of that carryover amount and in each category. And so you'll want to make sure that you are, documenting your budget throughout the year and managing that so that you have an accurate picture of what that total year 4 budget looks like. And then our upcoming talking circles, so the talking circle in October, will review this information and we'll give you directions for that year 4 budget revision and some budget planning for your upcoming grant year. So as we are thinking about some budget considerations, we did want to just make a little note on drawdowns. And so please make sure that you are drawing down at, we recommend monthly, but at a minimum quarterly. Most drawdowns are on a reimbursement basis, so you're expending the funds and then drawing them down. If you do draw down prior to expending the funds, then the funds must be fully expended as soon as feasible, but no later than 3 business days after you have done that drawdown. Right? So for example, if payroll is expended on the last Friday of the month, then you'll want to do your G5 drawdown the preceding Wednesday, rather than, for instance, doing it a week before on the previous Friday. And it's really important that you make sure that you're drawing down your funds on a routine basis, that you're keeping track of drawdowns, and that you are following this 3 business day guidance in terms of drawdowns and expended funds. Otherwise, if you have improper drawdowns, that can result in restricted drawdowns. So make sure that we are drawing down our funds regularly, and that we are following those expectations.
I just wanted to add in something real quick on there, just especially with it being the end of the year. I know we get a little frantic, like, yo, we haven't been making drawdowns, so we're trying to draw down as much as possible and maybe like pre-paying contracts or services and things like that. Do not do that. It's worrisome when we see that you have $0 in your account, more than seeing you have all of your funds in your account. You know, the same skeptic eye is going looking at it, you know, when you're drawing down too much or too fast, as well as not drawing down as at all. So please be mindful that, you know, you don't want to make large drawdowns for future items, things that are happening, you know, in the, you know, paying for contracts that haven't started or travel that hasn't happened and things like that. We do know sometimes you do need to like buy supplies maybe ahead of an event or things like that, and that's completely fine. But don't feel like you have to rush. Like you can easily justify buying those allowable items the following year, rather than rushing to try to buy it before it's needed or spend it. So don't go into frantic mode and start making unallowable drawdowns.
Thank you, Bianca. Absolutely. And then the last thing that I'll draw your attention to on the grant award notification. So after you've looked at the kind of money boxes, then you're going to go to block 10 where it's terms and conditions. And so for block 10, you might look at it and think it's just a bunch of legalese, but it's very important that you read this block of the GAN carefully. And so if any restrictions or conditions have been placed on your award for year 4, then it will be described here. So this could include, you know, like a requirement for quarterly reporting, route payment, among other terms and conditions. So you'll want to make sure that you do look at this block and that you're aware of any of those grant conditions for the following year. If you see any conditions noted here, then you will want to set a meeting with your program officer so that you can discuss what all those conditions entail and that you are clear on what is expected from year 4 and how that impacts your grant management. And then just to note, we will talk about this more in that October talking circle, but I want to put it on your radar that year 4 budget revisions are coming. They will be due November 16th. If you want to make a note of that, throw it in your calendar so that you are aware and it doesn't sneak up on you, since October is right before that. And so those year 4 budget revisions that are due November 16th are for your full year 4 budget. And all grantees must turn in a budget revision at the start of each new grant year. So this date here applies to all of y'all. And then, like I said, we will go over budget revisions in more detail in October. So make sure you attend that session and come with any questions you might have around budget revisions. Now, as we're talking about kind of funds and expending funds and drawdowns and all those fun things, I want to make sure that as you continue to administer your grants, that we review some fiscal requirements, particularly as you approach budget revisions, receive new GANs, and plan for year 4. So it's important to understand fiscal requirements and best practices, such as the difference between supplanting and supplementing and what costs are allowable. So to supplant is to replace something with something else. So essentially, it's something that you're already paying for without grant funds, and then you start receiving grant funds, and then you start paying for it with grant funds. That would be supplanting. So grant funds are not intended for you to replace funding with, so you shouldn't be supplanting. Rather, you should be supplementing. And so supplementing is to enhance something by adding to it. And so there are rules kind of governing that. So funds may not be used to supplant any existing federal, state, or local funds. So therefore, your grant funds should be used to add to what was already being offered prior to receiving the grant. And so you can see kind of that um, rule here on the screen. And if you would like to read more about that, Olani did provide the link in the chat to that full guidance there. So if you're unclear on what supplanting versus supplementing is, please make sure that you visit that link and review that information as well. And we are going to play a little game to kind of check our knowledge. So we're going to practice with a few examples. If you could put in the chat, as we go through this, it'll pop up some examples. So if you could put in the chat when an example pops up, whether you think that using grant funds for that example would be supplementing or supplanting. And then I'll kind of talk through each of those examples. Okay, so for several years, the school has run a theater program using volunteers. After receiving an OIE grant, they wanted to use those funds to pay the volunteers and support the theater program. So would that be supplementing or supplanting? So if I pay the volunteers that have been working for several years with the theater program after receiving grant funds, would I be supplementing or supplanting? If you could put your best answer in the chat. And if you're unsure, just take your best guess. That's the purpose of this activity. It's okay if you don't get them all right. Give everyone a few more seconds. Okay. So Rhonda and Chris, you guys got that right. It would be supplanting because it was a service that was already being offered prior to receiving grant funds. Are there any kind of questions about that example? I know a lot of us said supplementing, so.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah, of course.
I thought it was supplementing because because they were in a volunteer position. Had they been paid, then it would definitely be supplanting. But I see volunteer, it's as though there's no payroll record. There's nothing that said that they've really done that in the past. Like I think and by paying the positions, you could be changing the nature of the program and increasing it. So I could kind of see that both ways. I saw some gray area there. I could go either way with it, but as soon as someone put down supplementing, I was like, okay, so that's just my comment on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, this one's kind of a tricky one to understand. I mean, Bianca or Sarah, if you have anything you can kind of add to clarify that one.
Yeah, of course. So when we want to think about like what's actually being provided to the students, so if we, have like, especially with ACE, we're bringing in services that the students never had before, right? So it would be just taking, adding payment basically to something that's already being offered, which it could be great for the people who's working it or volunteering it, but it's not changing or adding more to the students who's receiving it. It would be supplemental if maybe they were only volunteering maybe 1 day a week, and now because you can pay them, it turns into a full-time position and they're offering more time each week. So like maybe it started off as like, oh, they're a tutor and came in, on a Friday, but now you're able to pay them. So now they have a full-time job or a part-time job where it's not only on Fridays, but now it's, through the grant on the service for this goal and for these particular students. So, but if it was basically getting the funds and then just paying the volunteers or paying teachers more to do what they're already doing, that would definitely be supplanting.
Yeah. So, so I mean, in some ways, right, there is kind of a a gray area to the extent that, you know, if what they're offering is increasing, is changing in some way for the students, then it would be supplementing. So like Karen, to your, you know, to your point, I think that's where if it became, right, like a part-time position and they're doing more, they're offering more, contributing more to the students, then you would be supplementing. However, if they're just continuing to do kind of what they've always done for several years in the same capacity, then you would be supplanting because you're not offering anything new. Thank you. And thank you for speaking up. You know, y'all are always welcome to ask questions and seek clarification. So, all right, our next example, you want to add a transportation service for students to be transported to off-site or non-school service providers. So would paying for that transportation off-site be supplemental or would that be supplanting? Thank you to those of you that have thrown an answer in the chat. Give everyone a few more seconds to put in their answer. Tom, I like how you added the caveat. That's always a safe one, right? Just say supplementing as long as it wasn't fast. Okay, yeah. So thank you all that have answered in the chat. So Karen, yeah, to clarify, I did say you want to add a transportation service. Yes, Cicely, yes. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Karen. All right, yes, so I think we all got that one right. It would be supplementing. So yes, the key word there was add. So I'm not trying to pay for transportation that was already provided. I am adding a transportation service so that students can get to services that they were not receiving before. Great job. Okay. Now the next one, you want to pay for transportation to school. Would that be supplementing or supplanting? Thank you, Kelly. Kelly, you're quick. Yeah, so for the sake of the example, we're going to assume that the students were always had a transportation option to school. Couple more seconds for people to get their answers in. All right, so I think we all got this one right too. Yes, that would be supplanting. So unlike the example before it, I'm not adding transportation that, you know, gets students to a service that they haven't been receiving previously. I'm just replacing transportation that they were already receiving during the school day. Yes, great answer, Mark. Yeah, supplanting because the service was already there. Okay, the next one. So you want to pay the district's native language teacher. So for some details for this example, you are wanting to pay the school district's existing native language teacher for 50% of their salary and reserve spots in their classes for your ACE students. This one might be a little bit more difficult. Thank you for your answers in the chat. Yes, can't make them all easy. Although you guys are doing really well, so. Okay, Mark, and I like how we're adding caveats to the answers to make sure. Okay, thank you, Cicely. Yep. Okay, yes. In this case, you would be supplanting. So, like some of your caveats suggested, not to say that you can't pay native language teachers. The reason why this one would be supplanting is because the native language teacher was already working full time and being paid that salary by the school district. And so then you would be replacing essentially local funds to pay the teacher to continue to do the same kind of job, same service that they were providing before when they were paid by the district. Now, as some of you all suggested, right, if it was a new position, if it was a service that was being added, they didn't have that service before, then yes, you could pay for it with your ACE funds. So on kind of that note, you want to add additional teacher pay for teachers to take on additional duties to add services for students. And then Cicely, I see your question in the chat. Well, I'll address that in just a moment. Okay, yeah. So in that case, it would be supplementing because you are adding to what is already being offered. You're not paying them for something else. And then Cicely had a question. So what if you added a teaching position through state funds that terminate? Since the position was an added service funded by a grant, could the funding be moved to the ACE grant? I'm assuming like once those state funds are terminated. So Bianca or Sarah, if y'all have any guidance on that one.
I think if it's like a clear discontinuation, like it was terminated and then you're restarting it and it fits through with the purpose of the grant, it could possibly work, but we just couldn't completely like, oh, now you can terminate it since we got the ACE grant type of thing. But if it was something that, oh, this service or program used to really work for our school district or for our students, and we don't have it no more because we lost funding and we want to bring it back and it fits into the ACE scope, then I can see that being supplemental.
Yeah. And then Mark, would it be supplant if there's those other duties as assigned? And Bianca or Sarah can correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of viewed it as like how if you are providing an additional, even if your contract says other duties is assigned, right? If you are providing additional services through the school district, like for instance, if you were to work summer school at most school districts, they would still pay you supplemental pay for summer school. So I kind of view it that way, like you're adding a service that then you're being paid to administer that service. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so
right. So if they already had their full-time hour set time, I think it would be like in addition to what they're already committed to be supplemental. So like what Casey was saying, maybe they didn't have summer school in their contract and now you want to use that teacher for a tutor for ACE or something like that. That could be supplemental, but it would be supplanting if the same salary that they were getting before, now you're using part of ACE funds to, cover that other duties as assigned. So.
Yeah. So if they were already doing something and the school district is paying them to do that, and then they continue to do it, but you pay them with ACE funds, then it would be supplanting. If it's something they weren't previously doing and you ask them to do it to support kind of the services you're offering through ACE and it's additional, then it is supplementing. And I kind of view other duties as assigned as things as like, bus duty, Saturday school for test prep, that type of things. Because most, like Sarah was saying, like most contracts or school district states have certain rules around like how much extra time you can keep teachers. And most of that extra time is eaten up by things like staff meetings, duty, that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Sarah?
so like a good example might be, so when I was still teaching, I was required to provide before or after school tutoring for a total of 2 hours per week. And how I offered that was up to me. I just had to post my hours for my kids, and then they could come during those posted times. But I also opted to work in my after school program at my school. That was in addition to the 2 hours that were required of me as my teacher contract. So I chose to work a couple of days a week in our after school program, but that was outside my contract. So I got paid an hourly rate to work in that after school program. Or like we offered Saturday school. And so when I would teach Saturday school, because that was in addition to my standard teacher contract, I would get extra duty pay for doing Saturday school. So those things would be supplemental. But the other caveat to that being, like if your school is already paying for teachers to work in the after school program through maybe a different grant, maybe you have a 21st century grant that pays for your after school program. You can't come along and say, oh, we got ACE funds now. Like we don't need the 21st century monies to pay the teachers for math tutoring anymore. We'll pay them with ACE. That would run into that same supplanting issue. It would only be if you look at it and you say, 21st century only covers 2 teachers a day, but we have a really big high school. We actually need 4 teachers a day to be working to cover the amount of kids that really need this service. So you could hire an additional 2 teachers because that's in addition to what you were already offering, but you couldn't take over the salary of the existing 2. So hopefully that rambling of examples helps.
Yes. Thank you. I think that was very helpful. Okay, so our next example is you want to start native language classes. And so you want to pay a native language teacher to start offering 2 native language classes at the middle and high school. So these would be classes that were not previously offered. Thank you for putting your responses in the chat. I really appreciate y'all's participation. Wait a few more seconds for some more. Yes, thank you for your answers. Yep. We all got that one right too. Absolutely, that would be supplementing. And like Sarah was saying as well, maybe you were offering native language classes, but you want to expand that program. And so you need to add more teachers to do that. Then adding on those additional teachers would also be supplemental. So either starting a new program or expanding services. Great job. All right. I won't ask you to think that hard about supplanting or supplementing for the rest of the time today. So, but we will move into grantee sharing next. And so our discussion will be an opportunity to share how you are using service providers in the summer, and then how you are approaching service providers as you move into your new grant year. And so I'm going to send you guys out to breakout rooms so you can kind of talk in a small group first before I ask you to share out. But I am going to call on each breakout room. And so please get mentally prepared to do some out loud sharing. You, yeah, of course, Cicely. You might want to designate someone in your room to kind of be the spokesperson, so we don't have that awkward moment of like, okay, breakout room 1. So just to kind of give you all a heads up of how this is gonna work, so you don't feel blindsided when we come back from breakout rooms. So these are the questions that we're going to be discussing. And before I put you into breakout rooms, I will provide a screenshot of this slide in the chat so you can reference them. And so these are the things that I want you guys to focus on in the breakout rooms. First, what types of service providers did you use this summer? And then next, kind of how are you handling contracts with service providers prior to the grant year starting? Like I said, I know a lot of us are going back to school, and that start of the school year doesn't always, almost never aligns with the way the grant year is set up. So kind of how are you thinking through that? And then where do you see opportunities to add service providers and really, get some ideas from your fellow grantees network, use this opportunity to brainstorm and discuss with each other. And I'm going to send you to breakout rooms for 10 minutes, and then I'll bring you all back and we will chat.
I had a great conversation with Kelly, and handling contracts for the upcoming next, I mean, the way I handle that, there's always a question of whether or not we're gonna have the money or whatnot, but we are moving forward as though that is a sure thing. And every contract comes, or every service agreement comes out with a bold lettering that says, depending upon, funding. And that seems to be able to make it so I can sleep at night. But I think, but a lot of it isn't necessarily related to funding. It's more just getting everyone in line. We have a lot of contracts. And so, having a system and organization and making sure you're advertising for all of that, just having it all laid out. And so that, I guess I would kind of call it, like, after the July 1st, it's kind of contract season for us. And so that's that would be my description of it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Tom. I'm sorry, I should have put y'all's last names or initials. I didn't think through that one there. But yeah, thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have any thoughts around contracts or how they're handling contracts? Anyone from any of the other breakout rooms want to share? Tom, I like that you mentioned, definitely having an organization, and then I think having that disclaimer on there too. So some good takeaways, especially if you have lots of contracts that you're managing. Is there anything else around this question? Any challenges you want to think through? Advice for your fellow grantees?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
And so this would be for the group or Bianca. So one of the things that we have noticed is one of our components is native enrichment. We're having a challenge as far as if you offer something during the day that, if you're asking students to come, maybe come out of a classroom in order to participate, that they may not be able to, or maybe they can't do it on the weekends. So one of the things I've been visiting with our cultural department, and I want to see kind of how to approach the service agreement, is I'm wanting them, they offer workshops, but the workshops are at a location and we have students that can't come to that location. So basically what I've asked them to do is if they could take their workshops basically and record them for me. And then what I can do is then send out a registration to these students. And then when they register, then they get a copy of that video, that workshop, but then also they receive a kit. And inside that kit would have those cultural components. So whether it's beading or making the moccasins or the cornhusk dolls, so that basically we're taking the native enrichment component into the home. And I'm just trying to figure out, because that would be a service agreement that I would honestly probably need to do within my organization. How would I approach that because we have multiple departments. And so I guess I'm just want to kind of see how, and it may be that someone could kind of explain how they do, the contracts or the service agreements with yourself for those different components like that.
Yeah.
So I would, I know that there's a couple of grantees that send kits to students, and I think it's a great thing. But I think, like, in my idea, like, simplifying it would be that, you can provide supplies to students. So if that, lesson or curriculum that's recorded is still considered like a supplies, and then all the equipment is the supplies. There could be like a per student cost for supplies for students, and that will be a service agreement with yourself.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that would be like the easiest way, rather than having multiple service agreements with different teachers or cultural departments, and then having them send the stuff out. So if you were the
Yes.
grantee purchasing basically the lessons from them.
Okay.
But yeah, if anyone, I know there's definitely grantees who are doing similar things that probably could speak up with their experience.
Yeah, thank you, Bianca. So if anyone else, other grantees are doing something similar and want to share kind of how they're approaching that, you're welcome to come off mute or put something in the chat. Okay, well, if no one has any other input, we'll move on to that next question. But I think, Bianca had a great idea as far as kind of viewing that as supplies, and approaching it that way. All right, so our last breakout question, where do you see opportunities to add service providers? And I know, we put this question in here because this comes up a lot in ACE, is like trying to get ideas of things that you can provide and offer for students. And so it might be helpful to, hear about some things that you all are thinking about offering to help support other grantees as they consider what kinds of services they could offer and provide. So we'll go back to that first breakout room. So other Chris, Iris, Karen, and Mark, if any of you would like to come off of mute and share some ideas around some things that you're thinking about offering in year 4.
Well, this is Karen. This year, and it worked very well, we offered laptops to our seniors, anticipation of them going on to college and other areas, but helping them to be able to access what they needed during their senior year to do that. So we will be doing that again this year. We're going to increase. This last year, we took a group of students on to some colleges, college tours, and worked out very well. And so we're going to increase that again this year and send them to some more, take them on some more college tours. As well. And then we had some camps this year where we had a lot of cultural, and we took them to Unity. And so from that, we decided we're going to try to bring on some classes for like making ribbon skirts and making other cultural things of that nature. So we're looking at that as well. And so we're just trying to gain on the knowledge from the experiences we had this year and seeing how we can implement and increase those choices. Another thing that we actually just finished up was we contracted a gentleman to write a handbook for our students dealing with college and the different choices of colleges if they decide they want to go to out of state, in state, helping them try to determine how they might could pay for college, helping them understand that there is a way to go to college, even if you don't think you have the funding to go to college, but also trying to address the cultural issues of family might not wanting the student to go out of state to college, because that is a issue. Some want their children to stay in state. So we're actually right now developing a survey to get a good understanding of what students would want to go out of state, perhaps to college, or what students will want to stay home or stay close, and options for them. And then just allowing them to look at all the different universities, because in this handbook, it has universities across the nation, rather some of them be Indian colleges, or more colleges that relate more to Indian students and have more help for them at those particular colleges. So that's some things we're adding on this year, at the end of this year, but adding on so we can help our students make better choices, help them to make choices that where they see their future going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Karen.
Thank you.
I love the college handbook idea. That would have been super helpful for me when I was in in high school. So love that. All right, so kind of in the same, continuing kind of in the same vein here, does anyone have any exciting things they want to share, celebrations, anything going on in their project that they're really excited about, proud of?
I did want to make a comment.
Yeah.
So one thing, just even in our breakout room, I guess just inspiring a little. So some of the summer programs that we do is just trying to do more land-based activities. Like I think Kelly had said, it's hard to get, or maybe not Kelly, but it's hard to get students out of the classroom during the school year. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. And so the summertime was one of those times when we were able to, like you said, get those buses and do more of the land-based approach. But just listening to Mark, like some of the things that they did this summer, or just even in our small breakout room, is there a way where we could get just some of the ideas that they're doing? I know when it comes to summer, it's like, oh, it's just my brain and just a couple of my, coworkers trying to figure out like, okay, let's do something different. Let's do something, that, parents are always asking for that land-based learning, and we really rely a lot on our service providers. But a lot of our programs with our service providers happen in the summer, and you have to be, a Nez Perce tribal member, and you have to be, so a lot of our students don't fit into these categories. You have to be enrolled. And so what we've been doing with our service providers is some of these summer programs that, our students don't qualify for, or some of our students who are native but aren't Nez Perce enrolled, or for whatever reason, even some of them are, not low income. We've been asking, our service providers, like, is there any possible way where we could take what you're doing and implement it within the school year? Is there a way we could take what you're doing and, could we offer it in a class? Could we offer it somehow, adding this program that's offered in school? It's just a program that's out there that they do in the summer that's completely awesome. So most of the time our service providers are creating classes, or they're creating service learning projects, or they're creating, we're trying to just build something that we could do within the school year. So the summer opportunities have been a lot better for us just because we don't have those limitations. But I just really enjoyed listening to our breakout room just some of the ideas that they do, I was just like, oh, like how do we recreate that and do that within our school? Because it was awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad that that was useful and that y'all were able to share that. And if y'all are comfortable, you guys are always welcome to throw your contact information in the chat too. If if there's someone you'd like to follow up with, or you want someone to reach out to you about something that you heard from them that you wanted to learn more about in particular, y'all are always welcome to throw that in the chat, or or message someone and ask if they'd be willing to share their information with you as well, so that you guys can continue these conversations beyond this as well. Anyone else? Any other things that anyone wants to share? You can share a celebration, something going on in your project, or something cool from your breakout room, a question, whatever kind of you have before we move on to wrapping up.
Here at Chugach, one of the things that we developed over the last 12 months was a program with another funding source that allowed us to develop a preschool language and cultural program that we had developed with a provider, with a developer outside of Alaska, and it required a lot of engagement with the community, the teachers, the parents, and when it was done, it was a language program that incorporated both the language and the cultural things that are in sync with the preschool state standards, because these preschoolers were being ready to be transitioned to kindergarten, and then the first 3 years of their preschool experience. And we just had this game. It's a wonderful game that allows them to practice their skills of listening and practicing and doing things. Very, very tactfully influencing. And they came up with we were requested to come for a project that would allow them to, this community, to incorporate the game with these preschool students. And I tell you, that was a very, very successful event, because we were allowed to, we were able to incorporate that project as the main item of the curriculum, and the program itself has been recognized as with the G Award program nationally as one of the most engaging elementary programs that designed for preschool students. So we were glad that we could incorporate that, because it incorporates the language of the Sukbek in that community, the cultural traditions that we practice year round, and it's the videos that we've been developing as part of our summer program has just been a fantastic things. I can't wait to share it with you guys.
Yes, please, yeah. Please email us, whatever you can share from that, and we'd love to, highlight y'all at some point and kind of share it out with your other grantees too. So please.
And this one, it relates to the last question we had too. But I'm working with a tribe in one of our larger communities for developing a drone program, because this tribe is experiencing with the mariculture development of edible edible foods from the sea, and like oysters and kelp. And so they have to monitor those very carefully. And so they're working with these high school students to be able to develop the technology of using these drone things to fly out there, where they would have to take a boat, but they can now fly out there. They can take videos of the mariculture farms that they have these out in that Prince William Sound area. So that'll be something that we'll be working on developing in the next grant year.
Oh, wow. Awesome. That's really cool.
And it'll be tied in with the Prince William Sound Community College, where these high school students will also earn a dual credit for this technology.
Very, very cool. Very cool. I love that that idea, and I love how it is really addressing a need in the community as well, and kind of connecting the community with the students in your grant. It's awesome. Thank you all for sharing today. I've gotten a lot from you all's shares, and I'm excited to see some examples and pictures and things from all these wonderful things that you all are doing. You guys are always welcome to share with our email, so that we can highlight you guys in talking circles and on the website and all those fun things. A couple of closing things. Remember that we do have the ACE Padlet, and we put the upcoming dates on here, forms and things like that. So Olani did put that link in the chat. And then any questions?
So before we move into questions, I also wanted to give a bittersweet update. I accepted a new position for HUD, so I will be leaving the Office of Indian Education. My last day will be the 1st, so this is my last month technically with Ed, but I will be working for the Office of Native American Programs, so I still will be serving, our tribal community. And if you do work with HUD grants, you might still be working with me. I don't know really what I'm getting myself into, but it is a opportunity for growth. So I'm excited for the new adventure, and it is super bittersweet because with ACE, of course, I was behind all the scenes and seeing how much it grew and all the hurdles and challenges that we've gone through. I have a lot of love and support for all the projects that came from this competition, and along with my other programs, I always super supportive of all the work that you do, and any way I can help you guys, I'm want to be there as well. So yeah, I will, be on for the next 3.5 weeks getting the slate finished. So, you'll have your GANs for your new awards before I depart. And if you have any huge budget revisions or things, definitely send them my way so I can kind of get that done before my departure. But I am leaving you in good hands. The OIE team is definitely growing, and I couldn't have done my job without synergy. Alani, Casey, and Sarah has always been there in my corner, and they'll stay there in yours. Hopefully they're not planning on leaving anytime
No.
soon.
No. I'll still be here.
Yeah, but so it's definitely, I'm excited, but I am a little sad because I do have so much love for OIE and all my grantees.
Yeah. We will miss you, Bianca. I've really enjoyed, getting to work with you and getting to know you. So sad that you're leaving, but excited, for you and your new adventure as well.
Yes, but again, I think it's going to be a great partnership. Where I'm still serving your communities just at another agency, and now we'll be able to collaborate more across agencies. So it's not a goodbye at all. I'm still here in support, and the office is literally right around the corner from Department of Ed. So we're still going to be connected and everything as well. So, I will, definitely pass on as much information I can to whoever is taking over for ACE, and leave good notes and get as much done as I can before I do leave. But yeah, it has been super, super busy with all the competitions and, the continued work that we do already. So, but yeah, I'll get it done.
All right. Well, on that note, if anyone, has has any questions. I know I saw some things in the chat, but
Yes,
you
thank you
wanna
all for
say-
the kind words as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, feel free to, come off of mute or share in the chat if you want. And then I know we're getting we're running into time there, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the end of event poll up while y'all are thinking and while we wrap up. But if y'all could go ahead and fill out that end of event poll for me as we kind of conclude. Thank you all for your participation. And then we also do have a grantee satisfaction survey. And we invite you all to fill that out. And one of my colleagues will share that link in the chat to that survey for you all to fill out. Really would appreciate your feedback. We value your feedback and definitely take that into consideration as we're planning things like these talking circles. So thank you in advance. And yes, I see a lot of things in the, in the chat for Bianca as well. Oh yeah, Olani, thank you for that. So that Padlet link is updated in the chat, and then I just put the survey link into the chat as well. So if you could complete that by August 31st, so we can have your feedback as we plan for your year 4 and how to best support you. And then remember, as always, if you have any email list updates, you're welcome to email those changes and additions to us at oie@sceiservices.com. When you do make any email list updates, we ask that you include the name, role, and email address in that email. And of course, we are always available to support you. Please do not hesitate to sign up for a coaching call. We have, it's your opportunity for one-on-one support. You can sign up for a 1-hour session, or you can sign up for a quick session, depending on your needs. And you're always welcome to email us as well. And our upcoming events, we do have office hours coming up on August 24th. And then that last one for this grant year will be September 21st. And then your next talking circle will be in October, and we will get you that date as soon as we have it. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for your participation. As always, great to see you all. Great to hear from you all. I love hearing about what you're doing. Some great ideas shared today, for sure. So thank you. Bye, Mark. Bye, everyone. Guado.